Welcome to video number 1 for Chapter 14, Forging the National Economy. Westward Movement was evident with the rise of Andrew Jackson, who was the first president from beyond the Appalachian Mountains, and this exemplified the movement west. In the late 1850s, half of Americans were under the age of 30, and by 1840, the demographic center of the population map had crossed the Allegheny Mountains. By 1860, it had crossed the Ohio River. This map shows the westward movement of the center of population from 1790, beginning here, to 2010, which it is at the last census. Life across the Ohio River was downright grim for most pioneer families, who suffered diseases, depression, and premature death. Unbearable loneliness, especially for women, breakdowns and madness were frequent, because frontier life could be tough and crude for men as well. Pioneers, marooned by geography, were often ill-informed, superstitious, provincial, and fiercely individualistic. Popular literature abounded with portraits of unique, isolated figures. Even in these days of rugged individualism, there were exceptions. Pioneers relied upon neighbors for help and upon the government for internal improvements, such as roads, bridges, and canals. Westward movement molded the physical environment. By the 1820s, trappers were active in the vast Rocky Mountain region, and the fur-trapping empire was based on the rendezvous system, which is French for meeting. Trappers and Indians had come together to trade beaver pelts for manufactured goods from the east. This is a picture of Major Dougherty's Indian Agency along the Missouri River, which was a trading post like this, which promoted commerce with the Native Americans and served the settlers that were heading west. Beaver all but disappeared from the region due to overhunting. The buffalo, in fact, were also almost annihilated. And on the California coast, traders sought sea otter pelts, driving them to the point of near extinction. Some have called this aggressive, heedless exploitation of the West's natural bounty ecological imperialism. Yet Americans revered nature and admired its beauty. Many found the wild, unspoiled character of the land, especially the West, to be among the young nation's defining attributes. America had a pristine natural beauty, unspoiled by human hands, and this natural mystique inspired literature, painting, and a powerful conservation movement. George Catlin, who was a painter and a student of Native American life, was among the first to advocate preservation of nature as a deliberate national policy. He proposed the creation of a national park in the 1830s, which started with the creation of Yellowstone National Park in 1872. As American people moved west, they multiplied at an amazing rate. By mid-century, the population doubled every 25 years, and by 1860, the 13 colonies had more than doubled in numbers, and 33 states which had stars that were representing them, graced the American flag. The United States was the fourth most populous nation in the Western world, exceeded only by Russia, France, and Austria. This is a figure, showing the population increase, including slaves and Native Americans, from 1790 to 1860. Urban growth continued explosively, and in 1790 only 2 American cities that could boast populations of over 20,000 were in existence, just Philadelphia and New York City. But by 1860 there were 43 cities, and 300 claimed over 5,000 people in their population. New York was the metropolis of the East, New Orleans was the Queen of the South, and Chicago was the swaggering lord of the Midwest, destined to be the hog butcher for the world. Over-rapid urbanization brought undesirable byproducts as well. Cities that were rapidly populating turned into smelly slums, had inadequate policing, impure water, foul sewage, ravenous rats, and improper garbage disposal. In Boston in 1823, the sewer system was first pioneered in an attempt to meet the needs of the cities and the rising urban population. And New York in 1842 abandoned wells and cisterns and began to use piped-in water supply, thus eliminating the breeding place for disease-carrying mosquitoes. The high birth rate accounted for the biggest increase in population, but immigration also helped. By the 1830s, immigration was 60,000 a year. The influx tripled in 1840 and then quadrupled in the 1850s. During the 1840s and 1850s, greater than 1.5 million Irish and nearly as many German immigrants came to the United States. This table shows Irish and German immigration by decade from 1830 to 1900. Why did they come? Because Europe seemed to be running out of room and had surplus people. The majority were headed for the land of freedom and opportunity. New transoceanic steamships allowed immigrants to move speedily and cheaply. And the United States had received a far more diverse array of immigrants than other countries throughout the world. The United States received immigrants from dozens of different nations. This picture shows the mouth of the Platte River, 900 miles north of St. Louis, and this painting is by George Catlin in 1832, who was a conservationist and wanted to show the unspoiled West as the American settlers moved to discover new areas and create new urban cities. And we'll discuss the rise of these instant cities in our classroom discussions.